Edu Gaspar shocked us all today with his surprise resignation from the position of sporting director at Arsenal Football Club. And I do mean everybody. It was quite obvious that the club had not expected this at all, or that it would be released today. The Daily Mail ran the story early on and everybody jumped on it. It became quite obvious that this was true. Of course, Fabrizio Romano getting involved, and then Edu Gaspar came out with what you would expect. Glowing tribute to his time at Arsenal and how this was the right time for him to move on. And so is this a really case closed? Is it just a really good opportunity came along and Edu decided this was the perfect time and that he'd done as much as he wanted to at Arsenal? The most predictable part of today, perhaps the only predictable part of today, was that Arsenal would release a statement thanking Edu Gaspar for his time and praising him. And that's happened. Now, that's media and that's what you're going to do. They're not going to release a statement saying how thoroughly disappointed they are that he's jumping ship. So is the offer too good to turn down? Is that what it is? In summer, there were rumours, obviously now true, that Evangelos Marinakis had approached Edu Gaspar, offering him a chance to oversee the Capital Group clubs that he has. And that's Olympiakos, who last season became the first Greek team to win European trophy, Nottingham Forest, who are going great guns in the Premier League at the moment, and Rio Ave, which I know very little about at all. But he is a character, is Evangelos Marinakis. And I remember at the time thinking, no, why would you leave Arsenal to go to Nottingham Forest, Rio Ave? I know there's the chance to be a CEO and Edu is apparently a very ambitious person. That's something he really wants to do. It'll be a bit of a thrill ride with someone like Marinakis because he's got a very colourful past. At the time, of course, though, Edu didn't accept it. Perhaps he just said, can I have 2 or 3 months to think about it? Or perhaps he originally said no and has recently changed his mind. The timing of his accepting that position now does seem odd. Is it because he has lost faith in the process? Is it because he is a hugely ambitious person and seeing Richard Garlick take the CEO position that he apparently covets? Then there's the appointment of James King. Now, presumably, the sporting director would have played a very big part in recruiting a new director of football. Or maybe he didn't feel he had that much involvement. Maybe he decided he didn't want James King, but the board decided they did, and there's a fissure there. And just 10 days later, he's decided he doesn't want to work with a director of football. He can't see a route to becoming the CEO, and this offer just looked even better. But you cannot get away from the central truth of this, which is that as fans, we are being asked to believe in a process. We are being asked to believe in a process, and we are being encouraged by progress, which we have seen. Not all of us have seen as much as we want, that's fair, but for most of us, we feel like we've seen progress. And that process we have been asked to believe in has been undermined by Edu Gaspar leaving. You can say, oh, well, look, he's been offered 3 times the salary and more free reign, more power, more authority, more influence. You can say all those things, and it's definitely true. But wouldn't he still be getting offers like that if he was a sporting director who'd actually helped us win the Premier League or Champions League? Wouldn't offers like the one who's been made by Marinakis be plentiful? He could also expect a huge pay rise in his position with us if that was the case, and he would do himself no harm long term in that position as CEO. Has he made the right decision? It's definitely going to be a thrill ride. I can't wait to see what happens because he is going to get a lot of freedom and maybe he is ready for it. It'll certainly be interesting and I wish him well. So long, Edu Gaspar. Thanks for all the memories. But what about Arsenal? What do we do now? We don't have a sporting director. Now, I know that we've existed most of our history without a sporting director, but everyone else has got one. I think we need one. We have to get one. And one door closes, another door opens. Could this be a blessing in disguise? Had Edu really lost the confidence of the board anyway? Is that why they brought James King in? They've obviously not given him as much freedom as he wanted. Is there a reason for that? Is the jury out on Edu Gaspar? Listen, I'm not qualified to say, but if you go to the Canon podcast, George did a fantastic 15-minute video about it. I cannot recommend it highly enough. Really interesting. I'm not going to touch on that area of whether Edu was a good sporting director or not. I'll leave that to better qualified people. So one door closes, another opens. And is it possible there is a better sporting director for us to go after? I've been giving this some thought, and I've come up with a short list of 5 names, ranging from the frankly very unlikely to the quite possible. But I want to start off on this list with James King, because this is the sensible appointment. He was brought in just at the end of October, announced as our new footballing director. He's somebody who was very much seen as having the potential to take over the sporting director position if Edu left. And so this would just be propelling that forward a little bit. But there is a clue, I think, in Arsenal's statement around Edu Gaspar, which tells us it probably won't be James King the sensible choice. And that is, this is from Josh Kroenke. He says, "We respect Edu's decision and thank him for his immense contribution and dedication to the drive the club forward." These sort of things could just be like, Word when they have templates. If your member of staff leaves unexpectedly. Everyone at the club wishes him well. We're all fond of him and the positive energy he brings to everything and everyone. Change and evolution is part of our club. Suggests more control than I think Arsenal have had in this process. But we remain focused on our strategy and winning major trophies. Our succession... I'm going to read that again. We remain focused on our strategy and winning major trophies. Our succession plan will reflect this continued ambition. So, am I reading too much into this? If you're going to come out and say change and progress is part of what we do, evolution, we're focused on winning trophies, we haven't stopped believing in this process, we're going to replace Edu with someone better. That's ambition. Because if you're just going to promote someone who was his junior, that's not ambitious. That's possibly good sound management, but it's not ambitious, and it won't appease people, and it won't address the knock that this process has taken when one of the senior architects of it has decided he doesn't think it's going to bear fruit soon. So I would say James King, even though he's the logical choice, isn't going to be the man to take over. So who does that leave? There are some really interesting names on this list. I'm going to throw out the least credible likely one that I saw was Cheeky Bergerstein. I know he's just retired, so that makes it really unlikely. But what if, what if he did decide after being ridiculously successful at Manchester City for over a decade, maybe it's time to do it for Arsenal, redress the balance. Also got me thinking, what about Pep Guardiola? Wouldn't he be the perfect sporting director for Arteta? The two love each other, so why not? I don't think Pep Guardiola is coming as sporting director. I don't think Cheeky Bergerstein is coming as sporting director. But there are still 3 names on the list, and the third of them, I think, people are going to take some convincing. If they only know him from his time as Manchester United manager. Of course, Man United brought in Ralph Rangnick to be a football director, but because they had to replace a manager, he stepped into that role, and he's never really been a football manager, but he is iconic. He is legendary at building football empires. So he is the sort of person that you'd have to take seriously in that role. And I know he's currently working, believe me, I know he's the current manager of the national team. He's the current Austrian national team manager. But it would be a serious statement of intent. And I think if Arteta and him could build a good relationship together, that might work wonders. The only hesitation I'd have on that is I'm not sure that he would fit into the board. I think he's going to want more control than they'd want to give him. So maybe Ralph Rangnick's not realistic, and I don't think any of you are that disappointed about it. But let me know in the comments if you do think he'd be a great signing. How about this? Not even the top of my list, by the way. That's how good I think my choice for the successor is. Arsene Wenger. Why not? Arsene Wenger is clearly a manager that Arteta respects. He understands the economics of football. He's been involved at football now with FIFA at the highest level. Perhaps the problem with the Wenger thing is I'm being overly romantic. But what a story that would be. The only downside, of course, is that can it be considered ambitious when you hire somebody whose prime in football was 2 decades ago? Possibly not. Possibly Wenger is just the romantic notion I have for the next sporting director, and it'll just have to stay that way. What about my choice, though? My number one option, the man I'd like to see come in and replace Edu Gaspar, well, it would be replacing an invincible with an immortal. Paolo Maldini, arguably the best defender of all time, out of work for the last year and a half since leaving AC Milan after being hugely successful there, and recognised in 2022 by Globe Soccer Awards as the Sporting Director of the Year. So, come on, the man's an absolute legend. Wouldn't it cheer you up no end if tomorrow the news was announced that Paolo Maldini had been brought in to replace Edu Gaspar? It certainly would cheer me up. And I do want to end it on that positive, because otherwise what we're looking at is, if a club wants me to believe in a process, then it needs to believe in a process. And clearly not everyone at Arsenal does or did believe in a process. So I'm choosing to think this is all a great thing. Paolo Maldini's on the way. Not that Edu Gaspar got frustrated by a lack of flexibility by the board in terms of transfers that he thought would work. Or not even that Edu Gaspar was slowly coming to the end of his time at Arsenal anyway, because too many questions were being asked over his ability to do deals. And is this all somehow related to the summer transfer window, which most of us have come away from feeling fairly nonplussed? Is that Edu Gaspar not getting the funds he wants, or is that the board, or is that Edu messing up these deals? Either way, rather than focus on the negatives, I'm focusing on Paolo Maldini. Today, you could be forgiven for looking at it as a sign that all of the talk of a process wasn't even believed by one of the main architects of it. Or you could say Paolo Maldini might be the new sporting director of Arsenal Football Club. And I can't see how somebody with his experience of winning could hurt. Certainly somebody that Arteta would look up to. And if our defence has looked better, think how much better it could still look. Let me know who you would like to see as sporting director, or let me know if you really know what they do, because I'm not 100% sure, to be honest with you. But they seem really important, and if everyone else has one, then I want one for Arsenal as well. Finally, Edu, I wish you lots of fun and success. Well, not necessarily Forest, obviously, but I am going to be watching, and I think of you only fondly for your time as a player and as a sporting director. So, farewell, Edu, and I wish you all the best on your adventure with the Capital Group and Evangelos Marinakis. He's certainly a swashbuckling, empire-building tycoon, and I'm sure, look, most of us would understand if we were offered 3 times more money to go and do something with more power, influence and control and all those things, we'd probably take it. So I wish you all the best, and thank you for your time as a player. Thank you for your time as a sporting director, whatever it is they do. It's been a good time. And of course, Edu, you may still want to keep your subscription to the Gooner channel, just so you can stay abreast of what's happening at the club that we all love so much. As for the rest of you, if you haven't subscribed yet, then please do. And don't forget to hit a like. It's free. It's free. Free to hit the like. It makes such a difference. Until I see you again, be lucky. Lots of love.